Dum 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 dum.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
We could try. No, it's fine. No, you just ruined it. It's just destroyed. It's just ruined.
I know. We need to enjoy the silence.
You need to just just behave yourself, basically.
I'll try.
Hello. We might as well just jump in. Hello.
Hi, Richard.
No, I'm saying hello to them,
Oh.
not to you.
Oh.
I could say hello to This is Richard from We're Not Wizards. Joining me today, tonight, tomorrow, Tuesday, Friday, could be Wednesday, is Juraj Bilic.
Oh, you mispronounced that.
Oh, come on!
Oh, yeah. You just, it's not going to be a hard rule. Just use the epsilon. Do you know the epsilon?
A little bit.
Oh, yes. So epsilon, accept the chase. That's it. And you'll be fine.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Joining us from Adreama Games, which is also known, a little while ago, he published Machina Arcana, and Machina Arcana went on to was very, very successful as a Kickstarter. In fact, was so successful as a Kickstarter that he is back to release he's unleashed his horror, his gothic horror and steampunky type horror of his second edition upon us, aren't you?
That's actually a very good intro and very correct. And also, I need to mention it's not just me, No, Richard. The voices in my head are just so strong that it's not even me that's doing all of that. So the game just needs to get out into the world. So I'm just, some kind of a vessel of a medium. That's it.
For people who are listening for the first time and wondering what is going on, it's okay. I don't know either. But the reason that we do this is because we're almost at episode 200, and if I don't get to episode 200, then I'll be considered an abject failure. And the second reason that we do this is because you sent us through an email, didn't you? You sent us through an email and said, could we have a chat about Machina Arcana? And I said yes, and now I'm wondering what I let myself in for.
Why you clicked on the mail in the spam folder and just said not a spam?
Exactly. I should have just filed it away and went,
exactly,
do not open under any circumstances at all. Are you well, first of all?
Well, you mean like mentally, physically? What?
But probably physically, first of all. I'm not sure mentally.
I've seen better days. My little spawns from the kindergarten get some bugs back and infected me. So I'm a little bit physically unwell, but mentally I'm doing pretty okay. I don't mind.
Are you excited then? Because you sound excited. You sound like somebody that's on the brink of just running about cheering happily. Really?
Mm-hmm. Really? Yeah, a little bit. But I'm gonna try to have my cool poker face for now.
I can't even see your face. It doesn't matter. But let's set the way back clock. When the last time you released Machina Arcana, you set a funding goal of $20,000, and you went on and you did 7 times that. You did like $142,000 kind of dollars at the time. So it was a resounding success with about 1,700 backers at the time. Before we talk about the current campaign, which is going to be launching probably around about the time this episode actually goes out. Do you want to tell us? Please tell us, how did you get into the hobby in the first place?
Well, actually, that was my first game that I actually even designed. The most of the time that when I played games, they were mostly video games, and somehow I stumbled upon the game of Arkham Horror, and I was somehow like enthralled with it and immersed into that whole world, being also a Lovecraft fan before that it just opened my eyes in a way. And so I just somehow came to the conclusion, look, I really like video games, but in order to create a video game of a high quality, it's almost impossible to do that on my own.
Yeah.
But to do some kind of a board game version, it doesn't seem such an impossible quest. And then the voices started to happen. And then it was all out of my control. Then I started just researching about similar mechanics and board games, and where would I see that world that I envisioned? How would I see the mechanics being played out? And just piece by piece, with the different iterations, with different versions, I just created that game. Actually, I had at that time a nice job. I'm a software designer, engineer, and at one point I just said, like, screw that. I'm gonna take a year of my life off, just investing in some kind of a project, and just gonna see what happens. If after a year, nothing happens, so okay, I'm still gonna find a job. It's not going to be a problem. But if I'm going to create something that's going to be a success, then great, even better.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided, just to play with it, just to try to do something and to take a risk. And in the end, it seems it was a great risk.
What kind of video games did you used to play then? What was your...
Well, they were mostly like RPGs at that time. I have a few years under my belt, so I'm more like a Fallout guy, Baldur's Gate guy, that kind of stuff. Even the Morrowind. I've spent countless years, I would say, in that world.
Skyrim?
No way, no. Even Oblivion, I didn't like that. I mean, it felt a little bit bleak and not as immersive as Morrowind. I know maybe I'm getting old and grumpy at some of those new kids and their games, but I don't know. It didn't have the same flavor for me as Morrowind did.
I'm surprised. Well, maybe not, because I don't know you, so I don't know your actual video game taste. But I thought, everybody's got to try Skyrim at least once. So you're more into like a Diablo 3 type thing.
Yeah, well, I tried Diablo 3. Well, it was okay, although that whole marketplace thing and just paying with money and didn't stick well with me. So, to be honest, I played most of Diablo 1. So the first installment was, even though when I revisited that like a years after, it seemed very bleak and very straightforward. Some kind of a grinding game. But it had its fun, especially when you're with your party and just dungeon crawling.
Did you, in terms of board games, I mean, did you get exposure to quite a few games? I mean, have you got a reasonable sized kind of collection of board games now?
To be honest, no. And I looked and inspected a lot of board games, but I didn't have time, and to be honest, well, it's going to be strange statement, but I didn't have a lot of friends to play with. Like, if I would like to buy like 10 board games, and some of them need like 4 players, and I need to go through like 10 of them in 1 week, it wouldn't be a viable solution for me.
Yeah.
So I downloaded the manuals, looked through all the videos and reviews and overviews, and actually I learned and went through a lot of board games, not through actually playing, but simulating them in my mind and trying to mimic the feeling of the things that I loved when I looked at specific things.
No, I mean I can understand that completely. I know that there's a lot of people out there who are doing kind of like solo variants of games nowadays. I mean, it seems to be kind of a bigger thing that people want to be able to set a game in front of them and be able to enjoy the experience as much as possible if they're playing it by themselves. And I think it's almost like I see it a lot of times on Kickstarter nowadays. Is there's people kind of ask, yes, I know you've got the 5 and 6 player variant, but is anybody doing kind of like the solo variant as well? So there'll be people be kind of there'll be people could be kind of be writing games kind of just specifically
just for that,
to take it on, which is a pretty cool thing. I reckon. I mean, people don't have enough time. They don't have enough time to maybe sit down and play for 5 or 6 hours. And also sometimes they don't have enough time just to sit all their friends down and actually get it organised so everybody is, everybody's together and playing. So I think that's why you see games like, say, Unbroken, which, did very, very well on the Kickstarter, and that's like a solo game, and that ended up doing about, I think it rocketed to like about, it was almost 600,000 Canadian dollars. So it did an awful lot of money. We
big success.
we had I think it was Artem. We had him on the show, and it was just before even the Kickstarter had launched. So we didn't know at the time what it was going to do, and he kind of explained it, and it was really strange because he spoke to me when he was at his work. So he had he says,
was he calm as well before the launch?
Oh, he was. He didn't know what was going to happen. It was really, it was really, really strange because he was just like, "Well, I'm finishing work for the day, but then I've got he only had a set amount of time before he had to set off and be home to be with his family, I think at the time." So he said, "Okay, well, we'll record what we can." So I think we spoke for about half an hour or something like that, and then he had to go, and then that was it. And the next thing he knows, he launches, and he must have funded in about 15 minutes or something, and then it kind of kept going. Was it difficult, or did you find it more difficult then to create a game yourself from scratch, or was it easier to do the kind of the compare and contrast of the different kind of rules with the way that you were kind of experiencing kind of games anyway through the kind of rule books and things like that?
Well, it was actually an iterative process because besides the board games and the video games, I also like to play Magic the Gathering. That kind of a card game.
Yeah.
So the first version, like proto version, I would say to some extent, was some kind of not Dungeons and Dragons combined to Magic the Gathering version of a game that I created. And so what I'm trying to say is that through many iterations and versions of the game, it started to crystallize. And the first version was not even close to the final version of Machina Arcana. So as the version progressed, and with a lot of playtesting again, and using my friends, of course, like guinea pigs, somehow the game emerged on her own. So the first version, no, it was not even similar and close to the final. But through 15 or 20 iterations, that's it. I just felt that all the pieces fell into place.
How difficult? Because one of the things they talk about when you're developing a game is the play-testing. So with you kind of developing it yourself, and you already saying, well, there was a bit of a difficulty kind of getting people to kind of play games in the first place. did you have to kind of trust on your instincts in terms of the playtesting, developing the mechanics, or did you get the chance to have other people kind of experience in the game?
Well, both. The biggest push towards like the final version of the game was being made after the convention in Croatia, where we just went with the game, and there were like maybe 100 sessions or so, and with all of the people just that I didn't know, that they were like strangers, and they just sat on the table and we played with them, and that brought like two things to mind. First, everything like played really nicely, so it was a really not a big surprise, but some kind of a relief, like, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm not doing some really big mistakes, like fundamental mistakes. But also the second thing is with the tuning and with just removing some of the unneeded stuff, or tweaking the existing stuff and trying to make the better balance and better enjoyment for all. So yeah, the testing was done mostly by myself, but before the launch to the public, and then with the conventions only with strangers, I would say I've experienced how the game really works, because even with your friends, there's going to be some kind of a bias towards you and towards the game.
Yeah. Was it strange kind of getting feedback from people that you know, obviously there were kind of these strangers, maybe critiquing the game, potentially being critical of the game, and was it a bit of an eye-opener in terms of how maybe the rules were laid out or some of the mechanics? Did that make you kind of change how those things were done?
Maybe I was lucky in a way, or maybe also the context really mattered, because we were on different conventions, and when you're at conventions, people are already in a specific mindset, really open and positive, and just trying to look and try for stuff. It's not like I somehow organized like a meeting where strangers would come and play the game. So we weren't the only game they played. So it was the setting that really brought the best of the play testing with strangers. Maybe it wouldn't be the same experience if it was done under a different setting. So no, it was a really pleasant experience, and a lot of people that were strangers were afterwards friends, and some of them are actually part of the team right now.
I mean, so you went ahead and you launched the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter page itself had a lot of information, but then there was tutorials, and you did a lot kind of like demos and stuff like that. What was it? I mean, one thing I noticed is that you didn't have an awful lot of reviews on the Kickstarter page. I mean, was that a difficult thing as a first-time creator to kind of get that? I mean, I noticed there's maybe like, you've got I've seen about 5 on there, a video as well. I mean, was that quite a difficult thing to kind of get you to get?
Well, actually, our industry is very special in terms of openness, and somehow a lot of people, as you know, as yourself, are very, very approachable and very positive about, and enthusiastic even about new things, new people. So I would say that I wouldn't say that I'm lucky. I'm actually lucky to be working in an industry that's so open and positive, because we before our first launch, first edition, we contacted a lot of reviewers, and most of them got back with a positive response, and they wanted to review the game. But we didn't have a lot of prototypes, so we needed to have some kind of we need to choose between them, and I think we've chosen a few of them, like Dice Tower and the Board Game Quest, and who made the reviews. And my idea was, okay, I don't need like 15 of small reviewers. Maybe it's just better to preview the game by the established reviewers, and that would be, I hope, enough for the backers to see that we're legit.
Yeah. Of course, it's changed an awful lot nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are expecting to have a bigger list, especially if you're a first-time kind of creator. I think they're expecting kind of like more, they're expecting to see more kind of reviews, previews, kind of, I guess more kind of video,
Yeah, not just that. I mean, market changes, and with that, expectations of the backers change a lot, and it evolves, and that's a good thing because in a way it pushes the boundary to have the better and the better quality games and designs. It's some kind of a competitive market. The bad thing is, and that's the drawback, is that sometimes even like the smaller creators, first-time creators, and who don't invest a lot of money in their art and in prototypes, in reviews, because some of those reviews are paid reviews, and it's kind of hard without connections, without money, to be seen. So that's the drawback. You can have really a marvelous idea, like the best board game ever, but if you don't have enough of the investment generating spotlight, I don't think it's going to be good for you.
I mean, you launched, the original Kickstarter launch was was it 2013?
Yeah, towards the end, like we ended on Christmas.
I mean, you must have seen there's been a huge change in Kickstarter kind of since then. I mean, are you quietly confident, this is a second edition, you must be quietly confident you're still going to fund, or with the change in the landscape, you're saying, well, I hope that we're still a big enough noise to kind of get, to be as successful as we were last time?
If I was a big publisher, I would be confident, but at the moment, I'm actually first creator. And no, I'm not. I wouldn't say I am confident on the work that we've done. But at the end of the day, it's just hope. I don't know what's going to happen. So I don't have any confidence like, yeah, I know we're going to fund. No, not at all. I feel that we've done everything on our part to produce like a really, not just a second edition with more content. We had a couple of years to perfect the mechanics, completely rewrite the manual from scratch, create the art from scratch. So there's a lot of things that we created and we accomplished. And actually today we had even a preview of sorts from Board Game Quest, who I really admire their opinion, and I really enjoyed just reading that preview because it boosted my confidence. But
was it a bit nostalgic as well? As in, was it kind of like a bit nostalgic, kind of, because they obviously were one of the guys that reviewed it last time? Did it give you a flashback? Did they use the same sentences?
No, they didn't copy paste it. The previous article.
Just like to change the date at the bottom and just said, no, it's still very, 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 very kind of good. But again, I mean, is the approach kind of going to be the same? I mean, okay, let's talk about Machina Arcana.
Mm-hmm.
How many with you having obviously so many backers from last time and having the input of those backers with regards to those people playing it, have you changed an awful lot in the second edition to warrant a lot of those people coming back and picking up the second edition, do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Were you conscious about that, kind of making enough changes?
That's the very, you are walking on a thin line because you have the game that's already established and the mechanics that are already there. So are you going to rework the game to have completely different experience? Are you just gonna balance something out, or you're just gonna go with the route of just, I'm just gonna put additional content and that's it, slap a sticker, it's a second edition, just buy, we have like 90 new items. So in those few years, my biggest concern was to create like a game that really represents everything that I wanted to be of Machina Arcana. Because take into consideration that for the first edition, I didn't just dealt with the game and mechanics and game design and game content. There's a lot of stories and short events, so I needed to write a lot of stuff, and the distribution and organization of the team, of the production and logistics and finance. I needed to do everything on my own, so I didn't have that kind of a luxury of time to really develop the best possible game. I just wanted to have the best possible game in that 1 year of developing. Mm-hmm. So afterwards, when I got the feedback from the people, from the backers, and when I had a few years just to reflect on everything that's been done, that gave me a lot of ammunition, I would say, to really dig into the Machina Arcana and just to grab everything that's great about it and to remove stuff that's just unneeded. So there's a lot of stuff that I just removed from the game. So there's no need for the game to have, if I'm not sure if you know that, but there was some kind of a drop mechanism that you could you could drop items on the map tiles, and then you could, or your other explorers could pick it up later. So I just dropped that because it didn't really bring a lot to the table, and it was very seldom being used. So there's a couple of those mechanics that are not bringing anything but introducing complexity to the game. So my biggest concern was how to minimize the complexity, how to make it as easier to learn as possible and with a less components as possible. Not to bring more components to the game, but to remove them, to remove the concepts. Because my idea is it's better to have some kind of a tight mechanic with a smallest number of pieces than just to introduce a massive amount of cards and types and everything and just try to overwhelm the player with the stuff that it can do.
I was going to say, but on the other side of it, I mean, with you having now an army of 1,700 people behind you, did it give you scope to then actually speak to some of that community when it came to looking at the second edition and saying, look, you've supported us the first time round. Did they give you feedback? Did you reach out to people that were kind of supportive and vocal in the campaign to kind of get some feedback on what they would like to change as well?
Exactly. And the game is alive thanks to those backers, but not just for backing, but just for keeping the flame alive. Because really, I don't know what I would do, because they really had the continual support, not just even after the campaign, but throughout those years. And that was like overwhelmingly positive experience, and not just support, like thumbs up, but just giving advices and giving feedback. And of course, I organized some kind of a manual team where a couple of those brilliant people just joined the team in giving the feedback and just talking about the rules, how the text could be written in a more simpler, more English manner. Mm-hmm. So it was a continual support to this day. And this podcast, I want to thank you, really, all of them, because I wouldn't be here without their continual support.
Yeah.
But still, Richard, I mean, I don't know in the end how many of those backers from the first edition are going to be in the second one. That's just my hoping. Because of that, just to also tell you that they will have a special privilege to the campaign, and there's going to be a massive discount for those older backers to be a part of the second campaign.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you have released a game kind of like a year and a half ago and then said, okay, I'm now releasing the second edition and I'm changing things. I mean, you have, obviously, it has been a number of years. And to be perfectly honest, it's probably been enough time between the first edition and the kind of the second edition kind of anyway. I guess at this time, it would probably be a good idea to explain how do you play it? I mean, what's the mechanics? How would how does Machina function?
Would you like to have some kind of a rundown of the overall?
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that would be good. I think. I think the thing about a lot of our listeners is some of them, they're getting into board games quite recently. Others will have probably only joined a couple of years ago, and for some, they'll be, this will be the first year that they've been doing. They've maybe dipped into a couple of Kickstarters, so it'd be a good idea just to hear a little bit about the mechanics behind Machina Arcana, if that'd be okay.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, it's like some kind of a story-driven game. So when you start, you will choose a scenario. So there are a couple of those scenarios in this core box, and you will just choose one. And then each scenario has a number of chapters, and you will progress through the game by progressing through the chapters of the game. And you set up like some kind of a random big map tile board in front of you. You put your explorers, and you start exploring the map tile. You have a lot of different spaces that you can activate, like a chest, and then you can gain a treasure, or activate an event space, and then something beneficial happens to you, that kind of stuff. But, of course, bad things happen as well. So besides explorers moving around, just enjoying their time in the subterranean complex, monsters will appear as well.
Yeah.
And not just monsters, really big horror monsters that are just trying to activate some kind of a subconscious fear and just try really to drive you crazy. Besides that, there's also bad things that happen as well, some kind of horror events. So in a way, people just take their turn, then monsters are going to be spawned, then some bad things may happen, and then monsters play and try to kill and eat the explorers, and that's it.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
So pleasant.
It is. But for monsters, it is.
It's like My Little Scythe all over again.
Something like that, yeah. It's some kind of a worker placement mechanic, but the machine works by using the blood of explorers.
That sounds beautiful. Where does I sign up? How long does it take for a game? I mean, what do you do? I mean, what kind of actions can you do in the game, first of all?
Also, it's very important to note that there are like items that you can, of course, by gaining treasure that you can use, and it has a lot of steampunk flavor throughout the game. So you can upgrade the items. For example, let's say that you found some kind of pneumatic hammer in the chest, and then you have some small pistol, and then you try to upgrade that hammer with the pistol, and then you also augment the pistol with some kind of a ghost powder that enables you to target monsters through the walls, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of mechanics involved with items. And there's a lot of mechanics involved with the events and using the map tile. So let's say that you have a lot of monsters and you just need to run away, because sometimes running away is the best option. It's not just some kind of a dungeon crawler where you are some heroic, people who are just gonna kill all the monsters and get the fat loot. Sometimes it's really survival horror, and it's more like tactical horror game than your standard dungeon crawler. And when I said like run away, sometimes you'll need to close doors to just hinder the monsters, or you need to activate traps, and then you're going to impale everybody on the trapped spaces, or you're going to hit the exploding barrel that's going to, of course, explode, that kind of stuff.
Is it competitive? As in, are you meant to work together as a team, or can you kind of mess other players up if you decide you want to do that?
Yeah, it's fully cooperative. Yeah, it is. Although once you die, then it becomes competitive, and by saying so, that means that by default, if no explorer have died, then the monsters are governed by the AI. So they're just like some kind of a mindless monsters. They're just going to attack the closest explorer. But if the explorer dies, then he's going to control the monsters, and he's going to try to kill the remaining explorers alive.
That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and also cool. at the end of the scenario, there is some kind of an end game. So when you finish through all the chapters, and then it's just some kind of a mini game at the end of each scenario with its own special rules, with its own map tile that you need then to win, or of course be devoured.
Was it? I mean, as you're going through, kind of writing the scenarios and things like that, were you building up kind of like your own lore for the game, your own stories for the game as well? And did you borrow from other elements, or did you try and kind of create your own world out of nothing?
Well, I used a lot of feel and from the Lovecraft, and all the monsters are his like initial creations. So there's a lot of Lovecraft in there, so that Cthulhu mythos is there. The game itself has a lot of lore and a lot of background story, and for the first edition, we even, I wouldn't say published, we even had like 2 mini books. One is a storybook that gives you a lot of introduction, prologue to the whole world, and it takes you through all the scenarios. It's some kind of a combination of the story and the art book. And the second book is Bestiarium, that gives you the overview of all the monsters and their background story as well. So there was a lot of like world creation involved. Although I have to say a lot of that was borrowed from the existing elements of Lovecraft mostly.
Yeah, I mean, when you're creating your own lore, do you feel compelled to make changes for the sake of making changes, or are you quite happy to say, well, this is well established enough and well thought out enough that if you started making changes, people are just going to say that's silly because that's not how it would actually work?
Yeah, true. Although I just used some like overview stuff. Like I used monsters from the Cthulhu mythos, but the world of Machina Arcana and what it represents, that's my creation, and that gave me a lot of artistic freedom to articulate what it is, and to give me the opportunity to build upon that world without people, scratching their head and just pointing out, look, but Lovecraft said that, so you're using that in a different manner. So in a way, I used a lot of elements, but those elements are really monsters, that kind of stuff. We have Spawn of Cthulhu, but the whole world of Machina Arcana, it's much bigger than just a series of monsters.
How long for you to produce all this content would have taken an awful lot of time. So how long were you working away on this? I mean, were you putting in a lot of hours a week, or were you You mentioned that you took a year off work.
Exactly, and that was a year like 16 hours per day, every day, 7 days a week, something like that. For those kind of things, you need obsession. It's not just interest and passion. Some kind of obsession is needed. And that's also the reason why it took so long for the second edition, because immediately after the first edition, and when the fulfillment was done, then I made a break, and I went to Ireland. I went there for a couple of years, contracting as a software engineer, had 2 kids in the meantime. So that's something that really put me on a different route from developing the second edition. And that's the main reason why it took also so many years, because for that kind of stuff, you really need to be 100% into it. So if you're not, then it's going to take a lot of time.
Do you think that's a danger when you're creating a successful IP, that if people are screaming out for a sequel, that it's very difficult to, was it catching lightning in a bottle? But you sound quite, as I said, you said at the beginning, you sound kind of quite relaxed, even though there's, obviously the voices, but
it helps, and even though I'm a little bit of role playing with the voices, it really portrays the feel of it, because it's not like I'm building a game for the success and for the backers. I want really to create the best possible game that I can. And if I approach it in that manner, not for people or money or that kind of stuff, then it alleviates that pressure from outside. And then it's all me. I mean, how good can I produce that? Can I find those artists? Can I somehow develop that ideas that can be flushed into a game or not? Will I fail? So a lot of that is on me, and I like that much better than to give that responsibility to the outside world.
I mean, during the time that Machina was getting ready and printed and produced, did you have other ideas that you were thinking about? I mean, that must have been, to be successful, and it was very, very successful. Did it give you a massive kind of boost in confidence for you to kind of dust off other ideas, or did you spend so much time on Machina that it was difficult to kind of maybe focus yourself on other things?
I couldn't do that at the moment, because at that time there was a couple of changes in my life, as I mentioned, with emigrating to Ireland and with the baby. So all of that just shifted my focus for some time. I couldn't, and it wasn't, it didn't felt right, to develop new stuff while, the baby's underway. So I postponed that for a little while before it opened again, that opportunity.
Yeah. I guess it's like external pressures of a real life as opposed to a fantasy life, and all of a sudden you realise you've got to be taken into account, you've got to provide for the family, and even though you've got the pressure off, I mean, I think regardless of how well a kind of a Kickstarter does, if you're producing, I think one of the biggest myths I think for Kickstarters is even when somebody does really, really well on a Kickstarter, the actual money that they make isn't probably as much as people would like to think it, kind of think it is.
Exactly.
And I mean, let's look at Gloomhaven. I mean, Gloomhaven did spectacularly well on its first time round. But then Isaac had to do another Kickstarter in order to do the second printing because there was certain things that happened during the first one that would have cost money. I know of a lot of people who, the last person I spoke to, I think Frank West, who did City of Kings, and he had a really successful Kickstarter. Everything was going really, really well, and then they got to as far as the the boxes getting shipped over for the games, and the way the games had been stacked meant that some of the boxes were damaged. So you had to go ahead and get, a whole pile of boxes basically redone, all redone, and that can essentially kind of clear you out. So I can understand where you're coming from if you decide, well, listen, we're going here, we're going to be doing some contracting, and you obviously get some kind of good kind of money kind of behind you. I mean, with that being said, do you see, I guess this is another personal question for yourself, but do you see being a game designer as a viable career option, or are you going to be, is it better to have the model where you can say, well, I'm probably better making the game, concentrating on it, and then going back into the software engineering again, kind of thing, in order to make sure there is kind of, there's food on the table, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's some kind of a hobby, something like a part-time thing that you do every now and then. It depends. It depends on the success, and it depends on your mindset. If you could see yourself as some kind of a obsessive freak who can deal with organizing everything and trying to message people like a few hundred emails per day, and if you can do that, and if you have a lot of success with Kickstarter, then it is a viable option. But but I think it's very hard, and there's just a couple of slots for a few of them, but it wouldn't be a viable option if you would recommend that to the general game designers. So I would say don't try to build a career on top of that. It's better to try to adapt on the things that come at you. So try to do things from the heart, from the passion. And if it's a success, try to build on that and then adapt to that.
It's always as you create a successful Kickstarter, and then what do you do after you've done the successful kind of Kickstarter? Because unless you're going to kind of like retail and have a distribution channel, you could be the guy that does the successful Kickstarter, and then 4 years later you're back in a normal kind of job because you're kind of like, well, I did all my work and that's it. I don't kind of have anything to kind of offer. But I mean, as I say, this must be. I mean, you said you're calm, but I mean, you sound still quite, excited, and are you kind of ready to see what happens over the next kind of 30? I mean, how long's the Kickstarter going to be kind of running for?
Just going to be 23 days, a little bit lower than the normal, like 30 days.
Was there a reason for that?
Well, most of the times when you look at the graph of the funded Kickstarters, the biggest plateau is in the first 3 days, and also the last 72 hours and 48 hours. So 3 days and 2 days of the end of the campaign. Or you're like the biggest chunk of meat in terms of funding. So in order to have that kind of a mid, you might need to be very experimental and try to keep up the momentum. But sometimes it's not worth it so much. So sometimes it's better to squeeze a little bit, to squeeze the campaign to about 20 something days to get the most of it.
And I mean, kind of, yeah, I've seen that. I mean, I think I'm just trying to think. Starcadia, Simon's latest project's like 14 days.
Yeah, but that's cool mini or not, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so you can just go ahead and say, right, okay, give us all your money, and then bye. See you later.
I think they even had some campaigns for like 5 days or something like that, just a couple of days, and that's it, like turbo campaigns, like ultra fast campaigns, and they can do that because it's not like they're like first creators and need to deal with the engagement and the exposure. So that's the thing. I mean, Kickstarter is for some kind of a retail. How would I say that? some kind of a shop, online shop, and for
Yeah,
some,
well, it's becoming an online shop, isn't it? Because
yeah,
Monolith's next game is going to be like you order from us and we've already got 1,000 units ready to go, and you're basically pledging to
yeah.
race to get your copy of the game. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
going back to you from say 2013, I guess if you told yourself what Kickstarter was like now, you'd probably be pretty shocked. That people have to have kind of like fully developed art before they can launch a campaign. You can't get away with just having 5 reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have like 7 or 8 potentially kind of gameplay videos. You might have to have a smashing video at the beginning. I mean, one of the things, I guess, you'll have the whole minis.
Yeah.
Why aren't there minis in your game? Kind of thing. But I mean, it was that. I mean, again, I guess at the time, that would have been like a cost thing, because is it standees you've got for?
Yeah, and I still do, and I don't even plan on having minis in Machina Arcana for now, and there's no need for that. I mean, I know that I could try to rationalize and try to give the people the best explanation why I really do think that minis for Machina Arcana just doesn't work. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because a lot of people want minis, and most of the time they're just buying the game because of that. And in light of that, I'm not even trying to win them, because I understand the value of minis. They have some kind of even I would say magical property, some kind of a 3D representation of the unit. But for Machina Arcana, it doesn't work, mostly because the map spaces are quite small, like 2.5 centimeters. And it wouldn't make sense that your hero is the same size as like some kind of a big boss, like Spawn of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
It didn't feel right for the immersion. So we didn't go with that idea. Also, the cost of minis.
Yeah.
People don't understand that if I have and I do have 50 unique units, that's gonna be mostly we're looking at maybe $200,000 just for a default stuff, just for tooling stuff. We're not even touching production. And I don't want to take that kind of a risk. I wouldn't be confident as such. What I can do is produce the best possible standees with the best possible art, and then the standees can even grow. So in this second edition, based on the monster level, they will grow, and you can do that because they're flat, and there's a lot of space in that regard. And I would even say that for me, I would say that I'm biased, and I'm aware of that. But those standees work pretty well because not just that they're in color, they also have the background in them. So it looks a little bit better and immersive to me than just a white mini. Of course, you can paint them, but that also involves a lot of work, and I'm not sure how many people do with that. I think they do, a lot of them. I mean, that's the reason why they're buying minis. But I'm not into minis, and I'm not into painting, so I don't see the appeal for myself. So
it's the weight thing. It's also the size of the boxes. I mean, I remember getting the pledge through for the others, and this thing came in the box. You could probably fit like a reasonable sized dog in, to be perfectly honest. And it was also, the other thing is, as well as you play the core game, but you keep the other minis to the side because you don't necessarily want to be kind of playing with them just now, and they end up kind of not getting kind of played of. I mean, City of Kings again is a good example. They've got standees, and Frank was adamant he wasn't going down the miniature route because he didn't think, again, just like yourself, he didn't think it was fitting in with the aesthetic of the game. And with, you know, basically the size of the tiles, the size of the gaming, the kind of the gaming, the game space that you had. So, you know, that's one of these things. And as you're right, it's the cost. I mean, if you turn around and says, okay, well, this time we've got to add on an extra, you know, $35 a box, and it's like, well, why is that? And it's like, well, because you've got little bits of you've got little bits of plastic kind of in there as well.
And the another thing is with the unique units. You know, a lot of Kickstarter board games with miniatures have a lot of the units, the same units. Like they have like 10 spiders and 10 brutes. But in Machina Arcana, everything is unique. Every card is unique. So we are looking at like 50 unique models. So that's the cost of that is just extraordinary. And not just the cost, even the logistical problems with that. So what if there's some kind of a problems with the quality of them? A lot of board games have that quality problems. And what then? You know, there's a lot of things involved that are sometimes out of my reach, and I can't control that. So I try to adapt and try to control what I can. And that's also the reason why I postponed minis for now. Maybe for some other game, but not now.
So, getting down to the nitty-gritty, as we shall say, how much is it going to be to pledge to get the kind of the core game for Machina Arcana?
It's going to be $50 for the core game.
That's nothing. In the scheme of things. In the scheme of things nowadays. Because I see, I mean, this is the other thing. This is me on my ranting thing. I am currently being put off by pledging on anything on Kickstarter because the base stuff seems to be about $120.
Whoa. Yeah.
And I'm just looking at our $120, $99, and that's just it's quite high.
Too much, yeah. It's too much, and that's my reasoning again. Yeah. Well, and that's the marketing way, because the Kickstarter not just produces because of the competition. It values the products that give more. So it's more about giving more, about flashing with miniatures and with number of stuff. But if you have less, it would feel to some backers that you're not offering the same value for the dollar. Yeah. So, but that's the problem. But it's inevitable, and that's just the reality of that. So even.
Yeah. No. What were you saying?
Well, also for that $50, it's not just we are gonna give you less stuff. For example, there's going to be like 300 illustrations in that game that we designed, and like I also said before that every card is unique, and there's going to be like 250 stories and incidents happening, and some of them are like events that you're gonna read aloud, some kind of a poems, beneficial stuff that happens, bad things that happen, short stories. There's a lot of fluff and a lot of immersion in the game, and that's what I want to do. I want to give a lot of immersion, a lot of value, but not with just with stuff like miniatures, but with the experience.
Yeah. I mean, looking over the previous campaign, the game looks fascinating. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks kind of like
Richard. Wait till you see the new one.
I'll definitely be giving it a check. If people have listened along tonight and they want to keep an eye on your good selves, where do we find you on the interweb nets?
Interweb nets. I haven't heard that term. Well, Facebook is our go-to social network that we use. Mm-hmm. We have our own website, of course, and the Twitter and on BGG, but mostly we publish our stuff through our Facebook. A lot of illustrations can be seen there. We have a YouTube channel as well where we publish our tutorial videos, the overview videos, that kind of stuff. So,
excellent.
Yeah, wherever you put your finger and put the Machina Arcana in the search box, I think we're going to be there, and we're going to be present to respond to any questions that you might have.
So what we'll do is we'll make sure we get all the links from you, so we can we'll put them in the show notes so that we have notes to show.
Cool. Sounds like a plan, Richard.
It is a plan. It is a plan. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, then go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on Twitter. You'll find us on Facebook. You'll find us if you go to our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. You'll find us our blog, because we write previews, reviews, and first thoughts about things now as well. And that is on we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. If you want to see photos, go to Instagram. We're Not Wizards. If you want to go watch videos, we kind of don't do very many videos, but all of our podcasts, thanks to Podbean, end up on YouTube. So that's We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast. If you search for that on YouTube, you will find us. You can email us, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com. And you can also, if this is the first time you've listened, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy our chat. If you want to listen more, if you go to a podcast catcher of your choice, like, Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Player FM and Podknife and even Podbean itself, all these fabulous places. You can obviously go to Apple Podcasts as well. If you like what you've heard there, then please drop us a subscription. If you like us even more, give us a rating or a review. And as we say, if you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars, because it just makes me big-headed. But don't give me 1, because I'm an ugly crier. Give us 5, because it's in the middle.
No.
And it's
8
average.
or 9.
And it's average.
9.
It's out of 5. You're ruining the joke. You're right, you're ruining the joke. Stop it. Give us 5, because it's average, and we are decidedly average. But the person who's not been average tonight, even though he ruined the joke like everybody else does, is Juraj Bilic.
It's been a pleasure, Richard, really. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about that.
It's good. I wish you all the best for your campaign. I hope it's going to do really, really, really well indeed. And we'll make sure that when the campaign is live, we shall be sharing the Kickstarter link far and wide. There are only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards? You're right.
No, you're not a wizard.
Absolutely not. And the second, how do you say we're not wizards in Croatian?
Mi nismo čarobnjaci.
That sounds even better than what I can say. That sounds brilliant. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, because that would be silly. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Juraj. Say goodbye.
Bye bye, people.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll6s.com, and check out Machina Arcana. If you missed it, like if you're sitting there going, 2013 went by and I missed that fantastically well-funded game, then you're getting a second chance to jump back into the horror stories, the tiles, the monsters of imagination and nightmares that only this man can create in his head. So check it out. It'll be out now. It'll only be kicking about for 23 days. There'll be links in the show notes aplenty, so you can go ahead and back, check out the campaign, see what you think. But until the next time, goodbye.